Your electric bill went up last month. You probably blamed the weather, or maybe you cursed your power company for being greedy. But the real reason might be sitting in a windowless warehouse 30 miles outside your city, burning through enough electricity to power 10,000 homes while teaching a chatbot to write better emails. In 2024, OpenAI signed massive long-term cloud contracts with Microsoft and other tech giants. Wall Street analysts called it the AI revolution finally arriving. Stock prices surged. Tech CEOs gave TED Talks about the future, but utilities and municipal governments didn't cheer. They started doing math that didn't add up in anyone's favor but Silicon Valley's. Here's what nobody told you. AI data centers now consume as much electricity as small American cities, not metaphorically, literally. A single large-scale AI training facility can pull the same power load as Boise, Idaho, or Fort Wayne, Indiana. And unlike those cities, the data center doesn't employ tens of thousands of people. It doesn't have schools or hospitals or tax-paying residents. It just sits there, humming, processing queries about whether a hot dog is a sandwich, while your regional power grid bends under the weight. You're paying for this. Not just through higher electricity rates, the infrastructure required to feed these facilities, the grid upgrades, the new substations, the transmission lines, those aren't being funded by the AI companies reaping billions in valuations. They're being funded by local governments, which means they're being funded by you. Let's follow one specific dollar, your dollar. Last year, a county in rural Virginia approved a tax abatement package for a new data center campus. The deal gave the AI company a 20-year exemption from property taxes in exchange for the promise of jobs and economic growth. The company would pay almost nothing to the local government. Meanwhile, the county had to spend $40 million upgrading the electrical grid to handle the facility's massive power demand. That $40 million came from municipal bonds backed by local taxpayers. You might not live in rural Virginia, but this exact scenario is playing out in dozens of counties across America: Georgia, Ohio, Arizona, Oregon. Wherever land is cheap and power is available, AI infrastructure is spreading like kudzu, and the financial structure is always the same: privatize the profits, socialize the costs. The AI companies get their buildings, they get their tax breaks, they get their stock price bumps when they announce expansion plans. What does the county get? A facility that employs maybe 50 full-time workers, most of them security guards and HVAC technicians. The promised economic boom never materializes because data centers don't need people, they need electricity. So your dollar, extracted through local taxes or higher utility rates, flows into infrastructure that directly benefits a handful of companies in San Francisco and Seattle, companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars, companies that could easily pay for their own grid upgrades, but don't have to because local governments are desperate for any investment that looks like growth. This is the Trojan Horse, the shiny promise of technological progress and economic development rolled into your town on the back of a press release about jobs and innovation. But once the gates opened, what came out wasn't prosperity, it was a massive energy liability that you're now responsible for maintaining. The numbers get worse when you zoom out. AI data centers across the United States are now responsible for consuming roughly 2% of the nation's total electricity. That's more than the entire state of Massachusetts uses in a year, and it's growing fast. Some projections estimate that by 2030, AI infrastructure could account for 8% of total U.S. power consumption. For context, that's roughly equivalent to all residential air conditioning in America. 2% might not sound catastrophic, but electricity grids don't work on averages. They work on peaks. When demand spikes, prices spike, and AI data centers run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, creating constant baseline demand that never drops. This pushes regional grids closer to capacity, which means less flexibility when actual humans need more power during heat waves or cold snaps. Translation: your air conditioner costs more to run because an AI model is learning to generate images of cats wearing hats. The subsidy structure makes it even more absurd. Local governments are funding tens of billions of dollars in grid upgrades nationwide to support AI infrastructure. Tens of billions, not millions. The scale is staggering, and these aren't investments that benefit the broader community. A new hospital wing benefits everyone. A better school benefits everyone. a reinforced power line built exclusively to feed a data center benefits one company and its shareholders. Meanwhile, the AI firms themselves are paying almost nothing in local taxes thanks to abatement deals. They're not contributing to road maintenance, public safety, schools, or any of the services that make a functioning community. They're just extracting resources. It's a wealth transfer dressed up as progress, and it's happening so quietly that most people don't even realize it's underway.
Here's why this matters beyond just your monthly bill. When local governments commit to these infrastructure projects, they're locking in decades of obligation. That $40 million bond doesn't disappear if the AI company decides to relocate or upgrade to a different facility. The debt remains. The county still has to pay it back over 20 or 30 years, even if the data center sits empty or gets sold to another company that negotiates an even better tax deal. This creates a trap. Once the infrastructure is built, the local government becomes dependent on keeping the facility operational just to justify the investment. They can't afford to lose the tenant because then they're stuck with massive debt and no revenue stream to offset it. So when the AI company comes back asking for more concessions, more tax breaks, more infrastructure upgrades, the county has no leverage. They're already pot committed. It's the same playbook that sports stadiums have used for decades. Promise economic development, get the public to fund the infrastructure, then hold the city hostage when it's time to renegotiate. Except stadiums at least provide entertainment and community gathering spaces. Data centers provide nothing visible. They're just industrial facilities that happen to be extremely profitable for people who don't live anywhere near them. The employment angle makes it even more frustrating. When politicians announce these deals, they always lead with job creation numbers. This data center will bring 500 jobs to our community. It sounds impressive in a press conference, but read the fine print. Most of those jobs are temporary construction positions that disappear once the building is finished. The permanent workforce is tiny, and the jobs that do exist, systems administrators, network engineers, specialized technicians, those aren't typically filled by local residents. They're filled by people recruited from out of state who already have the specific skill sets required. So the county doesn't even get the employment boost it was promised. What it gets is a handful of property tax payments from the engineers who moved to town, offset by the millions in abatements given to the company itself. The math never works in the community's favor, but by the time that becomes obvious, the contracts are signed and the infrastructure is built. This is why the AI boom feels different from previous tech waves. The dot-com era created actual jobs, lots of them. Software companies hired programmers, designers, salespeople, support staff. There was real employment growth that rippled through local economies. The AI era is different. It's capital-intensive, not labor-intensive. The value creation happens through automation and efficiency, which by definition means fewer human workers. That's fine if you're a shareholder. It's terrible if you're a local government trying to fund schools and roads. But wait, isn't AI supposed to make everything more efficient? Aren't we constantly told that artificial intelligence will revolutionize productivity and unlock trillions in economic value? If that's true, shouldn't we be seeing it by now? Here's the uncomfortable part. We're not. Despite record levels of AI spending, productivity growth in the United States remains flat, completely flat. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows that productivity gains over the past 3 years are essentially identical to the pre-AI era. There's no spike, no inflection point, no miracle. Companies are pouring billions into AI tools and the aggregate economic output per worker hasn't budged. This contradicts the entire narrative. The efficiency miracle that venture capitalists and tech CEOs keep promising isn't showing up in the data. AI might be generating better marketing copy or faster customer service responses, but it's not translating into measurable economic growth at the macro level, which raises an obvious question: if AI isn't boosting productivity, what are we actually paying for? Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, has repeatedly stated that AI will meaningfully boost productivity very soon. That quote has appeared in interviews, shareholder letters, and congressional testimony. It's the foundational promise of the entire industry. Invest now, profit later. The gains are just around the corner. But very soon is doing a lot of work in that sense. It's been very soon for 3 years now. At some point, very soon becomes never. And in the meantime, the bills keep arriving. The productivity paradox isn't new. We saw the same pattern with previous technology waves. Computers were supposed to revolutionize office work in the 1980s, but productivity growth actually slowed during that decade. It took nearly 15 years before the gains started showing up in economic data. The internet was supposed to transform business overnight in the late 1990s, but again, measurable productivity improvements lagged far behind the hype. Maybe AI will eventually follow the same pattern. Maybe we're still in the early adoption phase where companies are learning how to use the tools effectively. Maybe the productivity boom is coming, just on a longer timeline than anyone wants to admit. But here's the difference. Those previous technology waves didn't require massive public infrastructure subsidies while delivering zero measurable returns. Companies bought their own computers. They built their own internet infrastructure. The public wasn't being asked to foot the bill for speculative technology that might pay off someday. With AI, the subsidy comes first. The productivity gains come later. Maybe. And if they don't come, you're still stuck paying for infrastructure that benefits someone else. The irony is almost poetic. AI was supposed to be the ultimate efficiency tool, the technology that would eliminate waste and optimize everything. Instead, it's become one of the most resource-intensive, least efficient industries in modern history. It burns electricity like a steel mill but produces nothing you can hold in your hand. It requires infrastructure investments comparable to interstate highways but benefits a tiny fraction of the population. And you're subsidizing it, whether you use AI or not, whether you care about AI or not, whether you even know what a large language model is. This isn't some distant abstraction. It's happening in your county, on your power grid, with your money. The data centers are already built or being built. The contracts are already signed. The tax abatements are already locked in for decades. You don't get a vote. You don't get a refund. You just get a higher electric bill and a vague sense that something isn't adding up.
The scale of the subsidy is hard to grasp because it's distributed across thousands of small decisions made by local governments trying to attract investment. No single instance feels catastrophic. A $40 million grid upgrade here, a 20-year tax break there. It's only when you add them all together that the picture becomes clear. American taxpayers are funding the infrastructure for an industry that isn't delivering on its core promise. Think about that for a second. If a pharmaceutical company took billions in government subsidies to develop a miracle drug and then failed to produce any measurable health improvements, there would be investigations, lawsuits, congressional hearings. But when AI companies take billions in indirect subsidies through tax breaks and infrastructure spending and fail to produce measurable productivity gains, we just shrug and call it innovation. The quiet part is that this arrangement benefits everyone except you. The AI companies get cheap infrastructure, local politicians get to claim they brought jobs and investment to their districts even if those jobs never materialize, Wall Street gets another hype cycle to trade on, and you get the bill. There's no villain twirling a mustache here, no conspiracy, just a series of incentives that align perfectly for everyone except the people actually paying for it. It's a system working exactly as designed. Some counties are now competing with each other to offer the most generous packages. It's a race to the bottom where communities bid against each other by offering lower taxes, bigger infrastructure commitments, and looser regulations. The AI companies play them off each other, negotiating the best possible deal while local governments convince themselves that any deal is better than no deal. Except no deal might actually be better. The opportunity cost is real. That $40 million spent on grid upgrades for a data center could have been $40 million spent on broadband expansion, school improvements, or small business grants, investments that create distributed economic benefits instead of concentrated ones. So what happens next? The AI industry isn't slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. More data centers are being planned, more grid upgrades are being funded, more tax abatements are being approved. The subsidy train has left the station, and there's no mechanism to stop it. You could argue that all of this is worth it if AI eventually delivers on its promises. Maybe 5 years from now, productivity will spike. Maybe the economic gains will trickle down. Maybe the investments will pay off. But that's a bet, a very expensive bet that you're being forced to make without being asked. And if the bet doesn't pay off, you're still stuck with the bill. The infrastructure will still be there, the debt will still be there, the higher electricity rates will still be there, but the promised economic miracle won't be. The AI boom isn't just a tech story, it's a resource story. And right now, the resources are flowing in one direction, upward, away from communities and individuals, and toward a handful of companies betting that they can monetize your subsidies before anyone notices the math doesn't work. Your electric bill already noticed. Your local budget already noticed. The question is whether you'll notice before the next round of tax breaks gets approved and the cycle starts all over again.
But if you think the AI subsidy game is aggressive, wait until you see what private equity is doing to your healthcare system. Because while tech companies are quietly taxing your power grid, another industry is buying up hospitals and doctors' offices at a pace that would make even the most ambitious AI exec blush. And unlike data centers, hospitals can't just be unplugged when a business model fails.